Laptop manufacturers are always looking for ways to innovate, and some, like HP, have dabbled with adding a second screen to help with multitasking. Is this a gimmick, or is it actually useful? Today I am reviewing the HP Omen x2s 15T. Let's see if it is worth picking up. Hi, this is Stephen from OWNorDisown. I recently bought the new 2019 HP Omen 15T, and it is my daily driver. It comes with a regular paste and cools pretty well. At the same time, HP released the X2s. That basically means two screens. Here are its specs: an i7-9750H 6-core CPU, an RTX 2070 Max-Q GPU, 16GB of RAM running dual channel, 1TB NVMe SSD, 240Hz 1080p G-Sync IPS display, Intel 9560 Wi-Fi, and a 73Wh battery. Now, price as configured is $2,230. You can actually configure it up to an i9-9880H 8-core CPU, up to an RTX 2080 Max-Q, 32GB of RAM, 2TB of storage, and even a 4K display. The 15T is $200 cheaper, but build quality is exactly the same, with an all aluminium construction, making it nice and solid. Perhaps the only weak spot is the central hinge, but to be fair, I have not had any issues with my 15T. Just try and make sure to open and close it using the center of the panel. My 15T has a 144Hz panel, whilst my X2s has the 240Hz, and the colour gamut is pretty similar, as is the brightness. I did think the colours on the X2s had a little bit more punch to them though, but there isn't too much to choose between them. Now, 240Hz is smoother though, and if you don't have a G-Sync panel, I felt there was less tearing, and in my ghosting test the 240Hz was indeed better. But if you do have a G-Sync laptop, I feel that the 144Hz panel is good enough. Now, both these panels have G-Sync to eliminate tearing, and performing similar in my ghosting test when activated. So what are the main differences compared to the regular 15T? Well, port-wise, they both have 3 USB Type-A's and 1 Thunderbolt 3 port. Both have an HDMI and an Ethernet jack. The main difference for me is the lack of an SD card reader on the X2s, which is something I use a lot. Here's the webcam. It overexposes it without a doubt. Very bright. Wouldn't recommend it for professional use, but gets the job done if you just want a casual chat. The X2s power brick is also quite a bit larger than that of the 15T. It is a 230W brick versus the 200W brick on the 15T, which incidentally powers an i9 and 2080 Max-Q. No doubt this is to help push more watts to the CPU, as you will see later. The connectors are also different, which is strange because you'd think sharing the same bricks would reduce their costs. Taking a look inside the X2s, it has a slightly larger battery, 73Wh versus 69Wh, which allows it to have 2 M.2 slots versus a 2.5-inch drive and only 1 M.2 slot on the 15T. Now, don't expect any battery life though. Even with the screen off, you are lucky to get 2.5 hours. The cooling solution on the X2s is better too. HP applied liquid metal to the CPU, and the GPU has one extra heat pipe with a larger side heatsink. The most obvious difference is the 6-inch LCD 1080p panel, which is above the keyboard. The display is touch enabled, although you have to use a mouse when you're in game. By default, it displays the Omen command center, showing temperatures and clock rates, allowing you to alter the lighting of the Omen logo on the rear panel, which is something which is not possible on the regular 15T. However, if you want to change the lighting for the keys, which, unlike the 15T, is per key RGB, you need to use the main laptop display. HP also gives you the ability to take a screen clipping and put it on the small screen. You can either use one of several set positions to clip it, or to manually select it, just like the Windows snipping tool. I found this very hard to use, and to be honest, pretty pointless. You're supposed to be able to clip a portion of a game like a minimap, but I could just not get that to work. Even if I could, I think it would be much easier to use the main display. Let's face it, as players we are used to looking at the minimap directly in front of our eyes. I can see the screen being useful for watching a YouTube video that may help you with the work you are doing on the main display, as well as for some applications such as game streaming. But even this is a fringe benefit really, because the 15T is $200 cheaper, and that would buy you a second monitor, even a portable one from Lenovo like the one I reviewed recently. The position of the screen does mean that the keyboard is pushed forward, so HP includes a rubber wrist support that does get dirty quickly, but it does work well. The forward keyboard position thus means the Synaptics trackpad is moved to the right and is less wide than normal, but it does have a separate mouse buttons and it works well. Above it are buttons to open the command center, the number pad, turn the screen off and on, adjust its brightness, and there's a button that switches the display between the two screens. As a result of the keyboard position, the keys are far removed from the hot areas of the laptop and are very cool. Even directly over the heat pipes, it's not hot. I have actually seen laptops around the 50-degree mark, and hot air is blown out nicely at the back. It's good to see that the Omen command center now gives some degree of fan control, albeit if it's just max fan. Now if you don't see this option enabled, I recommend signing into the app. That worked for me. Idle fan noise is quite quiet, and even under load it's perfectly fine at 45 decibels. Max fan doesn't sound that much louder, but it does help to keep temperature spikes to a minimum, as shown here in Overwatch. The reduction in average temperatures for both the CPU and the GPU was about 5 degrees Celsius, so it's definitely worth doing. There are 3 power options to choose from. You have Comfort, you have Default and High Performance. Now all 3 have the CPU short-term power max at 90 watts. For both the Default and Comfort, the long-term power is 45 watts. However, high performance can push up to 84 watts, and this does take a lot of cooling. You can see that clearly in Rainbow Six Siege. Default on the left and high performance on the right. High performance maintains a high CPU boost at the expense of heat. The lower CPU boost in default mode translates to less GPU utilization. In games like Battlefield 5, the GPU boosts much higher in high performance mode, by an average of about 150 MHz. Even though CPU temperatures in default mode are 7 degrees cooler than high performance, you do lose on average 7 FPS as well, which is anywhere from a 5 to 10% hit. The solution therefore is to reduce that long-term power watts to the CPU, and this can be achieved using throttle stop. I apply a 125 mV undervolt to the core and cache and reduce short power max to 65 watts and long power max to 55 watts. Now using MSI Afterburner, I also overclock the GPU by 188 MHz on the core. Now not all games benefit from overclocking the GPU. However, Battlefield 5 does show some improvement, as you can see with the footage on the left. I also have the CPU undervolted using high performance mode and using the auto fan. On the right is regular high performance with the auto fan. So not only is the frame rate higher, but temperatures are less too. The average GPU boost went from 1600 MHz to 1784 MHz. The Omen x2s does actually well here, matching the Mag 15 and beating out the Lenovo Y740. Not bad at all. Shadow of the Tomb Raider is another game that benefits from overclocking. This time I compare it against high performance and max fan, and you see comparable temperatures with lower fan noise. Performance wise, the Omen x2s matches the Lenovo Y740 but does lag behind the Mag 15. Still, this is a good performance at higher settings. Now Red Dead Redemption 2 is a really tough game, and I use the inbuilt benchmark to measure the frame rates. Using high settings, the RTX 2070 Max-Q cannot reach 50 FPS, but it's not a fast-paced game, so it's more than playable. Default definitely takes a hit, but temperatures are even higher in high performance and autofan are good. This is because CPU utilization barely hits 20%, as the GPU does most of the work. So an average of 46 FPS isn't too bad. Now I did also try DX12 and saw no improvement. It handles Call of Duty Modern Warfare well. High settings, getting an average of about 103 FPS using high performance. CPU temperatures are generally okay, averaging 71 degrees with max fan and 81 degrees with auto fan. Now, as for CPU only work, the high watts in high performance mode do help it maintain a high boost clock throughout my testing. Cinebench R20 scored 2,917 points, much faster than the Y740, and I saw no point undervolting it to get a better score. The CPU averaged 74 watts and a 71 degree temperature, so this was perfect. A handbrake video encode is a much longer test, and the CPU averaged 3,784 MHz, 83 watts and 83 degrees. In fact, the time taken was class leading, competing systems like the Mag 15 and Y740 needing an undervolt to match it. So how would I sum up the Omen x2s? Well, first off, I think the 6-inch screen is a bit of a gimmick. It's handy being able to see your system temperatures at a glance, but I use MSI Afterburner and it shows your frame rates too. Plus the screen is not touch enabled in game, so you have to stop playing to change anything. I found it most useful for showing OBS Streamlabs, but again, only useful if you're traveling or don't have a monitor to use. The extra $200 over the regular 15T also gets you per key RGB lighting, which is nice, but it does lose the SD card reader, so for content creators, I think that is a shame. I think the liquid metal on the CPU did help a little, but long-term power max is too high. You can easily get away with 55 to 65 watts, and I would have liked actually to see the default setting be set at that, with the comfort mode being at 45 watts. The webcam is pretty poor, but the keyboard and trackpad are fine. And the 240Hz screen was really great, although I think the 144Hz panel will suit most people unless the 4K panel helps you with your photo and video work. If you're looking for a laptop to last you a good portion of the day away from the socket, this isn't for you probably. It does charge pretty fast though, so I can get back up to 50% mark in about an hour. Now, if you think you can make use of the extra screen, go for it. If not, then the 15T is for you. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.